2 days ago, I spoke about why thought is not origin. And since then, I've had a lot of messages. A lot of people have messaged me through YouTube, through Facebook, through email, with comments like, I cannot believe that this has finally been said. I've been trying this my whole life and it's never felt right. Variations of those sort of comments. But every single one of them had one common thread. And that is that they made themselves the crime scene of this distortion that is spoken about as the key to freedom. That is what I said on 2 days ago when I did the live, thought is not the origin, was the worst part about this, that your thoughts create your reality. The worst part about that is how it makes us wrong. That's the real cost and the implications of that. But today I want to go further. Because once people stop treating thought as the source, and here's the important part, and it's happening, right? Because that hasn't solved the issue. You know, everyone's been talking about for how many years yet now that your thoughts create your reality. Yeah, and everyone's been trying to do it, but it hasn't been working, right? So now what happens? What's been happening now, the next place that we're now putting attention and focus on, which is equally as distorted, is the nervous system. So today I want to focus on that. Instead of realizing, hold on a second, the evidence suggests that this does not work. The market did not move upstream, it remained downstream. It moved from the mind to the body and call that origin. But yeah, the body is origin, but that's another topic, another discussion, but not in the way that the market has now described it. Because what is now happening everywhere is that from mindset to body, where overwhelm becomes dysregulation, where shutdown becomes survival response, where rage becomes fight or avoidance becomes freeze, exhaustion becomes collapse, pressure becomes capacity, language has changed, but the location has not. So I want to be clear right now about one thing. Hell yes, your nervous system matters. I am not disputing that. The body matters. I'm not disputing that. And regulation matters. Absolutely. It matters in the moment. You're driving your car and someone jumps a red light. Of course it matters in that moment. But not as a way of life and a way of managing life. Because what that does is it keeps you then living life, permanently managing life, preparing for life, instead of experiencing life. You see, the thing is, the key point here is the nervous system is not where the pattern begins. The same as the thought is not where the pattern begins. It may be where the struggle becomes visible. That does not mean it is where the struggle began, or the issue began, or the distortion began, or whatever. Because by the time the body contracts, by the time it freezes, floods, shuts down, braces, or collapses, something has already taken authority. Something has already happened. It's not rocket science, is it? So the question is not, how do I regulate my response? That's like choosing, what color plaster will I put on my toe today? The question is, what rooted before the body produced the response? And that's what I want to focus on today. The root before the nervous system, because it's not origin. This live had to follow the last one I did a few days ago, because if we remove thought from the position of origin and then put the nervous system in that same position, the error has not ended. It has only changed location. And that is sort of what is happening in the market today. The market is trying to solve the limits of mindset by moving into the body. Regulate your nervous system, build capacity, create safety, resource first, track sensation, understand your survival response. And yes, they may help, but that help is not origin. The relief you feel in that help is not correction. Calm is not proof the route has changed. So what'll happen? It'll happen again and again and again. Moving from mind to body does not mean we have reached origin, source, the point of origin. What is creating it? The nervous system may be the report, if you will, but the root is earlier. This language has value. It has helped people. It really has helped people in so many ways. It has had a place. Has a place. It'll stop people calling themselves weak or lazy or dramatic or broken or difficult, whatever. All right, that's fine. It has given people a better language for your body's response. But the better language does not equal correct location and does not equal identifying root. It does not equal identifying source. A more embodied explanation does not mean the work has reached origin. And this is the part that is being missed. And that's the part that costs everything. Because the deeper you go in work is not the same as going earlier. Something can be felt intensely, an intense breakthrough, a profound aha, a magnificently glorious realization. It can be felt intensely in the body and still not be where it began. Something can show up through the nervous system and still be just reporting what has already rooted. So bring this into actual life. For example, let's look at it. A message arrives, and before you answer it, the body has already changed. Your chest tightens. Your breath shortens. You feel the body brace because the body now is holding it. And your mind starts scanning. What does this mean? What will this cost? What is expected now? These are all the things going around. This is what people are experiencing. And then the explanation arrives. My nervous system is dysregulated. That is what we are being told, taught, educated. That describes the response. It does not prove it has identified the source. Let's take another example, the big one for entrepreneurs. Your visibility rises. Someone asks you to speak, to post, to lead, to be seen, to name the work, to make the offer. What happens? The fog appears, fatigue appears. You become strangely busy. You have a weird drive to all of a sudden clean out the fridge. You refine what has already been clear. You revisit the decisions you've already made. And you start saying things like the timing is not clear. You're listening to your body. This is a big one. But the body is not giving you truth. It may be reporting the route that has already taken authority. Another one, a decision has to be made. It's a simple yes or no, or stay or leave, or send it or don't send it, or price it or don't price it, move or don't move. It's as simple as that, but the body turns the decision into pressure, fog, urgency, heaviness, delay. And now the whole decision is interpreted through regulation. I'm not regulated enough to move. Because I'm not regulated, this is not the right time. Because I don't feel regulated, I will mess it up if I move now. Sometimes the demand for regulation is the delay. Sometimes I need to feel safe first, is the root holding movement hostage. And this is where the nervous system explanation starts too late. It meets the pattern after the body has already reported. So the question is earlier. What selected that response before you could choose? And this is where the cost begins. If the nervous system response is treated as origin, when it is actually the output from what was created at origin, you spend years managing the report. You regulate, you feel better, then consequence arrives. Whether it's the message, the money, the offer, the relationship, the decision, the truth, the visibility, whatever it is, and the same old route takes over again. And sometimes you think that the pattern has changed because the response is quieter or different. But quieter or different is not corrected. More regulated around the same delay is still management. More fluent in the body while the same authority keeps running is still management. It's still managing life, not living life. And it is expensive. And that's where years go. Life movement goes there. Regulation may reduce the volume of the response. It does not automatically change the authority producing it. And here's where my work and my commitment and my non-negotiable comes in. Because the test is not how much better you feel, how much calmer you feel, how much more insight or awareness you may have. The test is the consequence. What moved? What changed? What happened? What reality got reorganized from your move? What was the outcome? The consequence. Not whether you feel calm afterward. What takes authority when the thing gets close? Because the reality that gets created is the evidence. You can spend years calming what still has not been read. I want to collapse the assumption. If the once and for all, if the nervous system is the origin, then regulating the nervous system should end the pattern. Not soften it, not make it more understandable, not give you a better language for it, not give you a better management strategy. but end it. But that's not what many people are living. That's not what people are experiencing. They regulate, they calm, they track. They understand the freeze, the shutdown, the survival response, and still when consequence arrives, the same output returns. The money gets close, and then there's contraction. Visibility rises, and there's disappearance. Intimacy asks for presence, and there's defense that rises. A decision requires authority, and delay happens. The body may be calmer, the language may be more refined, the shame may be reduced, but the same root still takes authority. And as I've said, calm is not proof of correction. It's transitory. Feeling safe is not proof the root has changed. That is also transitory. A regulated state is not the same as structural freedom that is sustainable, consistent, no matter what. So the conclusion is simple. Regulation may be working at the level of response, but not at generation. It may lower the volume, it may reduce the intensity, but if the same pattern returns when consequence arrives, the generating root has not been corrected. And this is where the whole regulate first script loses authority as the dominant answer. Because it's not origin. And when it's mistaken for origin, you become loyal to management. You keep returning to the body to calm what the body did not begin. That is the old model collapsing. And to be clear, regulation can be useful, but it's still not origin. So when I work with someone, I'm not asking first, how do we regulate this nervous system response? Because that is already too late. I'm asking what rooted before body produced this response? What had authority before the contraction, before the shutdown, before the fog, before the delay, before the confusion, before the fatigue, before you had a language for it even? And that is where I read and reveal. Through the codec system, I read the root generating the output before it becomes visible. Codex names and classifies the architecture of that root so it can be cleared and corrected. And when it is done, it is done. Signal routing is the mechanism. The nervous system is the report. It is the output. The root is earlier. And that's the difference. Mindset work made the mind the lead. Trauma work made the past lead. Nervous system work makes the body state the lead. And Codex makes none of them the lead. I read the root, the mind may be narrating, the past may be explaining, the body may be reporting, but none of that proves authorship. Most models begin with what has appeared, what is showing. I read before that. Not for another explanation, not for another layer, not for another reason the person is still not ready, not for another reframing of mindset or revealing another wound or healing another story. I'm looking for the root producing the output. And that is why this is not, what I do is not nervous system regulation. It is not a better way to calm the response. It is a different location of work. I mentioned earlier that there is a role for body. Body is included. The nervous system is included, but neither is mistaken for source. And the proof pattern here is simple. Across repeated field observation, I keep seeing the same thing. People can regulate, they can understand the trauma response, they can name the body pattern, they can name exactly what their nervous system does and when it does and why it does it, and still under pressure the same output returns. I'm not measuring freedom by whether someone feels better for a moment. I'm not measuring freedom by whether somebody is able to move in the moment, or whether you have a better language. I'm not measuring it by whether the body calms during the practice. The question is, does the repeated output change under consequence? When the money gets close, when the relationship gets close, when the visibility required gets close, when the move required gets close, when the message needs to be sent, the decision needs to be made, when that gets close, does the repeated output change under consequence? What happens when money gets close? Intimacy, decision. What happens when they get close? That is where the model is tested. But this live is not a proof presentation. That the point here is narrower. If the same output keeps returning after regulation, then regulation did not reach what generated it. It may have helped the state, it may have lowered intensity, it may have created relief, but the root still has to be read, because relief is not proof. Changed output under consequence is the proof pattern. And this is important. This is an important conversation right now, because the nervous system conversation is everywhere, and it is heavily distorted. It will keep people in the architecture of looping, deepening and compounding the sense of shame, worthiness, good enoughness, because it is fleeting. It doesn't sustainably change. The nervous system conversation is no longer fringe. It is now mainstream language in self-development. And that means the market is repeating the same error that it's been repeating for the past number of decades with a more convincing vocabulary, because it is exponentially growing right now. I'm seeing it every single day. And all it's going to do is make more people feel their bodies are crime scenes. And people have done that with mindset for years. Now the same structure is moving into regulation, just a different language, but the same risk. The market has replaced mindset with regulation. Improve or shift, all it's done is create a different management system, and it's become more sophisticated. Because if nervous system is treated as origin, people will spend the next decade regulating what is still not being read at source with a better language, with more body awareness, more tools, but still the same repeated output under consequence. The old model migrating into the body. It's important that I call this out right now, because codex cannot be placed inside that category. It is not inside that category. This is not nervous system regulation. This is not somatic management. This is not a better way to feel safe before movement. What this is the questions what comes earlier. What rooted before safety became the condition? What had authority before regulation was needed? And that is why this is so important right now, this conversation, this pattern interrupt that the codic system and what I do with it is so important right now. It matters now more than ever. So I'm going to close it here. If what you call nervous system struggle keeps returning as overwhelm, as shutdown, pressure, or reactivity, looping, exhaustion, collapse, avoidance, or delay, the question is not how to regulate better. It is what root is producing that output before it becomes your normal operating state. And that is what I read in a structural review. A structural review is not a discovery call. It's not a conversation about the pattern. It's not another place to explain why you do what you do. It is where I read the generating root behind what keeps repeating and identify the correct next access route. And one of those roots is Cosmic Tribe, where repeated output is tracked over time through my live root reading within the Codex system. I read what is going on, the root. Codex names and classifies the architecture. The work clears interference at the generating layer. Importantly, output is tracked through consequence, not through how you feel or what you feel, but what gets created and reorganized. Because movement changes and life reorganizes, and that is what, and the only thing that matters. But first, the move is the read through the structural review. That's the first step. Because the nervous system is where the struggle becomes visible. It does not mean where the struggle began. The thought is not origin. The nervous system is not origin. The question is what had authority before either appeared. So I invite you to apply for a structural review. I'm going to put the link in the comments. If you are done with the mindset work, the regulation work, the healing work, and the same output still returns under pressure, then this is for you.